Bernie Madoff is requesting to be released early from his 150-year prison sentence, citing terminal illness. And now his victims can submit letters to the court to share how they feel about his sentence possibly being reduced. NBC News investigative correspondent Tom Winter is here with me now. Tom, so let's get into this. First, if we could sort of just go back, he pleads guilty in 2009 to running the largest Ponzi scheme investment scam in history. I so vividly remember his victims so many people lost everything, their life savings, their homes. So can we just go back to sort of what happened then and just remind our audience kind of what happened then and the impact?
So basically for decades, really, Bernie Madoff ran a fund saying that every year he was able to get consistent returns, high returns on these individuals' investments. Now, of course, that totally, belies gravity, the gravity of the markets. I mean, markets go up, they go down. To consistently always have the same returns was a red flag. Eventually, he got caught doing it. And so what he would do is he would take money from, say, you or I in order to then pay out somebody else who wanted to be paid out because they thought that they had invested this money over the years. So when the financial markets and the economy tanked in 2008, 2009, he could no longer keep up the speed of redemptions with the money that he was taking in, and the emperor essentially got caught without clothes. Obviously, it had a tremendous impact on the victims. Over $13 billion with a B, $13 billion in investments that he would have had and should have had for people out the door, and he took it himself.
So now, let's talk about what's happening now. So he's asking for this early release because of a terminal illness. Now, as far as I know, he's receiving medical care, right?
He is receiving medical care, yeah. According to the Bureau of Prisons, which is overseeing his care, because he is in prison right now, basically he has kidney failure and a host of other diseases and ailments that he has. According to letters that were filed by his attorney, he's declined care for some of that himself. So he's waived off some of the care himself. Otherwise, Bureau of Prisons says, look, we have the ability to treat him for this, but they also acknowledge that the ailments that he's facing, particularly the kidney failure, is a terminal disease and that he probably only has 18 more months to live.
So because of that, he is asking to be released early.
Exactly. And that's something that sometimes happens in those cases. And even the Bureau of Prisons says in their letters and their filings and correspondence with Madoff's attorney, look, this would normally be a perfect case for somebody to, in fact, be able to have their sentence reduced, to be able to go out in prison. We were talking here earlier about how there was a recent case with Bernie Ebbers, the former CEO of MCI WorldCom, is somebody who was able to get out of prison because he only had a certain amount of period left to live based on illnesses that he had. So it's not something that would be normally out of the question, although the Madoff case is a very unique case.
Right. And now victims are going to get to have a say. So tell me what you think we'll hear from them. What exactly is it that they're submitting? What type of emotion is that going to hold? And then how does that look to a judge?
Right. So this is something that's very typical. Whenever there's a request by a defendant who has victims, and obviously Madoff has a number of victims here, people have been deeply impacted by the financial fraud that he carried out.
Right.
They're allowed to write letters to the court. So what has already happened is Madoff's attorney has come forward and said, look, this is what we would like. We'd like his sentence ended early. We'd like him to be able to go home, to be able to get some treatment. Now that automatically opens the door for any of his victims to write a letter to the court. As a matter of fact, the U.S. Attorney's Office has made it easy for them. They've said, look, and they put out a press release today, which is the reason why we're talking about this, saying, look, send us these letters, send it to this specific email address. They also have a website that's online at the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, so people can submit letters, and then from there, they'll be passed along to the judge. They're hoping to wrap that up by the end of February, by February 28th. At that point, both sides, both the U.S. Attorney's Office will have the opportunity to respond to the request from Madoff. Madoff will then have an opportunity to respond to that request approximately mid-March. So we're not going to have a resolution anytime soon, but we should expect over the next month to start seeing these letters start to roll into the judge. They will be made public. And I think given the severity of the fraud and the impact on these victims. I would expect these letters to be highly emotional. This isn't like the Evers case where somebody had been in jail for 20, 30 years already. He's only been in jail for approximately 10 years. Not a lot of time for people to recoup their losses. In many cases, a lot of those losses haven't been recouped, even though the government has really done a very significant effort and a significant amount of work here to be able to recover some of these funds, and they've distributed a fair amount over the last couple of years.
Do we know if anyone has submitted a letter yet?
It's too soon to say, really. I mean, this filing just came up this week, and typically judges like to receive a group of them before they publish them or make them public. So I would imagine, though, that the U.S. Attorney's Office has definitely heard from victims already, and I wouldn't be surprised if those letters are already starting to come in.
Are these letters really what carries the weight in a final decision? Is this sort of the only opposition to his request?
It's not the only opposition. Prosecutors are going to have their ability to file as well, and I would suspect that they're not going to be looking for leniency here.
Right.
I mean, remember, he's been sentenced. He still has over 100 years left on his sentence. So when he was initially sentenced, the judge knew he was giving him essentially a death penalty sentence, for lack of a better phrase. So I'm not surprised that, I would not be surprised, rather, to see prosecutors here say, no, we don't want him to be let out. Maybe if he's in, extreme medical condition, maybe that would be an opportunity, but I don't think that they see that as being something that is imminent. I don't see them going along with any sort of request to let him out. I certainly can't imagine many victims will argue for that, although I wouldn't be surprised if several of them do, just the way people feel over time. And so we'll have to see what happens. The letters, the prosecutor's statements, the judge's own reading of the defense filings, those are all kind of mixed together. And from there, it's really on the judge to decide what to do.
Well, thank you so much. I know you'll be watching it for us. You said you won't know for probably over a month or so.
I would say at least a month, month and a half, and we may actually even see Madoff perhaps back in court, or at least a court hearing about it, yes.
All right. Thank you so much, Tom.
Sure thing.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.